Hello and welcome to the Auld Triangle, the Irish MMA podcast brought to you by SevereMMA.com. My name is Ian O'Neill and today I'm joined by my co-host Andy Stevenson and Caoilte de Barra. And before we get started, I just want to mention our sponsors for this stream, All Real Nutrition Bars. Head on over to eatallreal.com, enter the code word SevereMMA, get yourself 15% off some of the best protein bars on the market, an Irish run company. Head on over there, enter the code word SevereMMA, get 15% off. And now let's get the show on the road. Big thank you there to Under Starling, who are happy enough to let us allow them to use their song for the intro. If you like what you hear, head on over to Spotify, YouTube, go and follow Under Starling there. And that song was called Icarus. So we really appreciate the guys letting us use that intro there. As I said, my name is Ian O'Neill. I'm joined today by my co-host Andy and Caoilte. Well, before we get going, I guess the purpose of this podcast for us is to shine an extra light on the Irish MMA scene. You know, we all share deep passion for Irish MMA. Myself, Andy, and Caoilte, who've been doing great work on the scene there for quite some time now. And I guess, yeah, before we get going, we just wanted to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be doing. And that will be to shine the spotlight on Irish MMA. There's a bunch of podcasts out there who are covering the sport overall, including Sean and Graham, who are doing a great job on the main podcast, but they only have so long and they can't get it all done. So you have to cover UFC and Bellator and all that. So what me and Andy and Caoilte really wanted to do with this podcast was just concentrate solely on Irish MMA, on the Irish MMA scene, the pro ranks, the amateur ranks. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I'll just move it on over to you, Andy. How are you doing today? And how happy are you that we finally got the show on the road here? There's been lots of talking and chatting and organising, but we're here. We're finally doing the thing.
Look at that! Look at that first intro. We're here. We made it. I'm doing great, Ian. I'm really happy, and I'm excited to get this going. As you said, this is let's introduce it. So we've been working for SevereMMA for a bit, and doing other bits on the side as well. With the IMMAF guys, and we've been looking at the Irish scene for a while, and we just wanted to, we saw that there's maybe a little bit of a gap where there's room for a podcast solely about Irish MMA. That's where our passion lies, and that's where we want to say hello to you guys, the listeners, and whoever's watching. That we want this to be a show for anyone who has an interest in Irish MMA. Without anyone listening to this or watching it, it's nothing. So we want this essentially to be a place where you guys can get involved, where we can chat about Irish MMA, whether it's or fighting championship, cage conflict, whatever the local show is, and just get excited about it, because I think it's a really exciting time for Irish MMA at the moment, and I'm buzzing anyway. I don't know how you're feeling about it all, Caoilte.
I'm absolutely ecstatic. The play, like, Irish MMA is booming at the moment. It's we've went through a period there of, like, it's been very quiet. Promotions didn't get to have fights. Obviously, there's been COVID, but even before that, there was kind of a lack of shows. But now everything is just, I don't know, it's kind of erupting again. But it's a slow build up. You've shows coming back, like the ones you were mentioning there. You've the amateur scene is just blowing up. Amateurs are moving to pro. You've some that are thriving at a national level, international level. And it's a really good time for the sport. And I think it's no better time to start doing something like this and shining a light on it some more without having to mess around with the idea of, let's say, other promotions, such as, like, I know the UFC, everyone can talk about that. So with the fact that we can specifically speak about this scene and shine the light on it is just amazing.
100%. I mean, yeah, you guys said it perfectly there. I think that we're coming into a stage with Irish MMA, where personally I feel it's just about to take off and to the next level. Of course, we had Conor McGregor, who shined a light onto it before, and I feel that there's a bunch of amateurs and professionals coming onto the scene now that are going to shine an extra light onto it again, and I'm really excited to be a part of it and to put the spotlight on it as well. We will be having a guest on later on, Andy Ryan, head coach of Team Ireland, heading over to the IMMAFs, also head coach of Team Rhino in Dublin as well. He'll be coming on a little bit later on to us just to discuss the World Championships. And before we get to that, there's been a couple of news stories that have been happening over the last week. We will start first, I guess, talking about the biggest news maybe, and that would be the signing. Dean Barry announced his signing to the UFC over the weekend. And I mean, it's another Irishman into the UFC, which I'm delighted to hear about. And just if I go to Andy first, what do you think about the signing, and how do you think that Dean will be doing in the UFC? There's a rumor that he's set to maybe fight Mike Jackson. I know there's nothing confirmed yet, and maybe a little bit later on this year. So what do you think about the news, Andy?
Yeah, like, this has been a long time coming. Dean obviously signed back in November 2020. We broke the news on SevereMMA, and there was a lot of I suppose surprise on one hand, but also a lot of excitement. As it played out, he was matched with Mike Jackson. That fight fell through. Jackson withdrew from that one. It was the fight was remade. Dean had some visa issues that got postponed. He then had to look for a fight out of the UFC. His last opponent, Hugo Prada on Titan FC, a decent enough opponent. Last minute, he pulls out. So he let's be honest, it was a squash match, but ultimately Dean got another first round KO, and now he's back in. So I'm very excited about this. I think that when with someone as inexperienced in MMA as Dean, he obviously comes from a decorated kickboxing background. I'd like to see them go with a slow roll from here. He's still very young in his career. There was a lot of criticism online of the signing. There was a lot of people excited, but I do hope that the Irish fans and everyone in Irish MMA do get behind him, because ultimately, another Irishman in the UFC, there's only 3 of them. So anyone who can get signed from Ireland, anytime the UFC are looking at Irish MMA, whether it be putting a show here or signing a fighter, it's good news. So as you mentioned there, potentially a fight with Mike Jackson on the cards. I think that makes a lot of sense if I'm Dean Barry.
For sure, yeah. We have a couple of questions later on, and we might dive into that a little bit further. Like you said, Andy, Ireland has had a pretty barren spell inside the UFC. Now it's great to see like Ian Gary. We know Conor will probably be back a little bit later on this year as well, and also we have Dean Barry as well. Are you excited to see Dean in the UFC? See that tricolours coming back into the UFC as well, Caoilte?
Yeah, it's going to be great. Obviously, the news before he signed and didn't work out, it was a bit of a shame. And going into his last fight, there was a little bit of criticism of him, as Andy was saying. And some people weren't exactly getting behind him. But it now seems there's a bit of a vibe going that there are people that are now getting behind him. I've seen 1 or 2 people give him quite a bit of support, and there's a bit of a positive reaction. And the one way of looking at it is that if the more Irish guys that you have in the UFC, the more chance of a show coming back to Dublin. And we all know what it's like. The Irish crowd are absolutely ridiculous. It's amazing. Best crowd in the world. So can you imagine if you could have a card full of Irish lads and just keep signing them? It's the way it is. So having him, it's not going to hurt. And it's amazing for him. It's like he's got a young son that he wants to provide for. No better place for him to be in the UFC. He could pick up a bonus if he has a good win over Mike Jackson. If that fight does happen, they've been going back and forth for the past, let's say a year now. So hopefully it happens. And yeah, it's a good fight for him.
Yeah, 100%. Other quick news, Katie Saul got herself off to a winning start in 2022. She picked up an armbar victory over an Invicta last weekend as well. So it was a good start for SBG's Katie Saul. Brad Katona was also announced to be fighting for the vacant bantamweight title at Brave CF 57. That'll take place on March 11th. I'll be looking forward to seeing Brad getting in there. He's been doing quite well since moving over there to Brave. Quite big news inside Irish MMA was the announcement of the main event for Cage Conflict 6, which will take place on Sunday, March 5th. And we'll deep dive into that a little bit later on in the year. But the main event was announced over the weekend, and that was a fight between Kieran Mulholland and Ger Harris. Kieran Mulholland, obviously from FAI, and Ger Harris from SBG Charlestown. I mean, that's a phenomenal fight in my eyes, and it's one that I can't wait to see. And I'll move over to you, Andy, and say, what do you think about that fight? It really is a fantastic and a fascinating contest.
This is the type of Irish fight that gets my juices flowing. I am buzzing for this fight. I think it's a perfect main event. Look, Ger Harris is a former junior IMMAF World Champion. Kieran Mulholland, he got off to a slow start in his pro career. He had the fight with Jack Maguire in Cage Warriors and picked up another loss there. But in 2021, Kieran Mulholland has looked incredible. He's come back. He's gotten 3 subs. He won the vacant Cage Conflict flyweight title, and now he's set to defend it for the first time. And ultimately, when this fight was made, my immediate reaction was just hats off to both of them. Like, this is so often you see early on in careers now where there's a little bit of a shift towards the boxing model on occasion with some fighters where, I'm not saying padding records necessarily, but, the people are careful with which fights they're taking. Ger Harris is coming in and taking on a very dangerous fighter in Kieran Mulholland, very dangerous on the ground, in flying form at the moment. And similarly, Kieran Mulholland, Ger Harris he's one of these amateurs that's been long talked about, and it's this is a very much an eagerly anticipated pro debut for him. So massive respect for both fighters for taking, this is a proper fight, this is a proper matchup, and I am absolutely buzzing for this one.
Yeah, me too, I have to say. Another great fight that was announced recently as well and for Almighty Fighting Championships, which will take place on February 19th, and that's about between Tiernan Loughran against George Staines. I know that you're pretty high on two of these guys, Caoilte, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts on that fight. I think it's a fantastic fight between two really talented amateurs. I just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, 2 top amateurs scrapping it out for a belt. George Staines is he's solidified himself as one of the top amateurs in the UK. He's very close, probably pro ready, if not just getting to there. So this is a huge fight, and Tiernan Loughran, then this is big for him. He comes in here, if he takes a win, takes the belt from George Staines, that's massive, and that's huge for him as well. Especially as an Irish fighter in the UK, he's not fighting, and we don't see him as much fighting in Ireland. But the fact that we can see him just taking out these UK prospects, that would be huge. It'd be huge for him, especially for his career moving forward, because that's a big name. And anyone in the UK scene could tell you that this fight is it's a great way to start the year for amateur MMA in the UK. There's a few shows before that, but I think this is the biggest amateur fight in the UK that's upcoming anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Tiernan picked up a great, close fought win against Alexander O'Sullivan in his last fight too, which is a great name to have beaten on your resume. That's for sure. Moving on a little bit more, before we get into the IMMAF World Championships, and Andy Ryan will be joining us in just a few moments as well. Andreas Binder was supposed to be fighting on Superior Challenge in February over in Sweden. Unfortunately, he had a double set of bad luck there. He had his fight pull out first, and then he was just about to secure another fight, but the event has been postponed now until June. And I mean, that's very unlucky for him. I'm sure he wanted to get the year off to a good start for him. And I, for one, would hope that he would not have to wait until June to get his next fight. I know he said that there might be something in the works for him on his Instagram today. And I guess a little bit of a bad luck there, Andy. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Andreas Binder is another, up and coming pro that I'm quite excited about, and it was interesting to see. I know my understanding was that he had a little bit of trouble getting matched on, kind of the Irish and UK scene, so he had to look further afield to Sweden. But it's just the nature of the draw these days with COVID. Like you just don't know. Like you have to be very careful. Like I spoke with both Sinead Kavanagh and Leah McCourt recently, and I think it was Leah that had said to me, taking a fight against an international fighter, you don't know if it's going to go ahead or not. Whereas, so they're kind of both safer in the knowledge that, fighting another Irish fighter, you only have to drive down the road to get to it. So this is a risk with taking a fight abroad, but it's just tough. You don't want to see fights getting cancelled and postponed, but look, it is postponed. He will have the opportunity to fight again in June, and my understanding from speaking to both himself and his management is that they're looking for a fight kind of around March, April time, so that he could get one in beforehand and stay active this year.
Yeah, that would be great to see. Andreas is a serious prospect. I'm looking forward to seeing his progression in the pro ranks as well. So we'll move on to the main topic of our conversation today, and that was we're going to focus on the IMMAF World Championships, which are set to take place from the 24th to the 29th of January in the Jiu-Jitsu Arena in Abu Dhabi. I know, Caoilte, you're going to be traveling over to do some work for IMMAF. You're going to get a close look at all the action over there. And we'll have Andy on in a couple of minutes to talk about the progression of the amateur scene in Ireland. But Team Ireland have a strong team heading over there. What are your thoughts on the team that's heading over there, and are you looking forward for the championships overall?
Yeah, so I really got to deep dive into IMMAF kind of championships, the last two events, the Europeans and the World Cup that was in Prague, and I absolutely fell in love with it. The standard is incredible, and like these amateurs, you're looking at and thinking they could destroy some pros. Like there's plenty of pros out there that wouldn't be able to last with some of these amateurs. It's incredible. The level is fantastic, and Ireland are like they're one of the best. Like we know that they're in the Super Cup with Brave. That's going to be huge. So it just shows how far ahead we are. Kind of like they're up there. So there's a lot of good talent coming through, and yeah, I'm buzzing. This is probably going to be the biggest. It is the biggest IMMAF World Championships to date. So the fact that I get to go. Something I'm very honored to be able to do and see and witness it live and see some of the Irish talent go through live, because we could see a really breakout there from this, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Some of the names, I guess, ones to watch maybe, or notable names that we've seen on the scene or that have previously been in IMMAF. I guess, obviously, the top one there, Caoilte O'Sullivan, absolutely fantastic. She medalled when she was a youth and has progressed to junior now, won the gold at junior at the World Cup, and absolutely fantastic talent.
Just if for anybody who might not be too familiar with the setup or the categories that do take place in the World Championships, Caoilte, like what categories are fighters? I know there's junior and senior levels, so could you just maybe give it like a brief explanation on what way the categories are kind of split up?
Yeah, it's a good show actually. So there's obviously the youth, which is for anyone who's under 18, and then junior would be from 18 to 20, so under 21, and then senior is 18 plus. So the senior isn't capped at a certain age. It's it could be whatever age entering it really. But yeah, so you've a fairly decent sized Irish team going ahead there. Another name that stands out is junior lightweight Max Lally. We've all heard about him. He's thriving on the amateur scene. He won a youth world championship, youth IMMAF World Championship there last year, and then absolutely tore up the amateur scene in Ireland as well, which has been phenomenal to watch. Jordan Scully, he actually he lost to Max in the World Championship final, the youth World Championship final, but another one to watch. Some other names there. Kerry-Ann Vernon,
so
who
just to jump in, so for anyone who's listening in right now, what we're doing is we're just going through the team at the moment on screen. So if you do want to see it, if you want to follow along, you can head over to YouTube and see everything in video format also. Sorry to cut across you there, Caoilte.
No problem at all. I forgot that's going out over audio as well. Perfect. And another name there, Kerry-Ann Vernon, who scored an absolute cracking knockout at the IMMAF World Cup. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Serious knockout there. I was very impressed with that, and she's a very good young up and coming fighter that's coming out of SBG Cork there. I'm very excited to see her progress as well.
It shows that there's talent outside of Dublin as well. There's that conception that MMA kind of revolves around Dublin, but it's everywhere. If you look through this list, there's like Team Rhino Waterford, Solomon Simon there. So you have Cork. They're from all over. It's great.
Yeah, I think there's like 15 different gym affiliations that are heading over to this World Championships overall. I mean, that's very promising, and I know that we'll probably have a conversation with Andy when he comes on as well about the whole structure, and I'm sure that we'll see that list grow as well. I mean, it's a very, very strong team. Gary Rooney, from SBG headquarters is a guy who I'm really
Up the
high on.
flats.
Up the flats.
Up the flats.
I know you've had a chance to see him up close and personal with Andy as well. Are you excited to see him in action over there?
I am. I'm very excited to see Gary. I was cage side for Cage Legacy 14 there, the last one, and he put a beat down. You know, it was back and forth for a good bit. The first round was quite competitive, but once Gary got Ross Kearney to the mat in the second round, it was a brutal ground and pound. If anyone hasn't seen that, go seek out that finish, because it was, you know, just thunderous shots raining down on poor Ross Kearney in that fight. I'm very excited about Gary Rooney. You know, he's very. If you look at, say, the more established names and more experienced pros in SBG Ireland, a lot of them are big on him. Like you look at, say, like I know he's not an established pro yet, but like a Lee Hammond, Richie Smullen in his corner on the night, they're all very high on him. So I'm very excited to see him take part. And as you said, you know, so many different gyms here. I think that what IMMA are doing or attempting to do anyway is great. I think that there's a lot more structure these days and a clear path as to how you can qualify for these tournaments. And now I know, and we'll speak to Andy Ryan about this, that not every gym in Ireland is affiliated with IMMA, so there's a barrier there, and there's I guess in order to have one big happy family in Irish MMA, there are issues to overcome, shall we say. I don't have the answers to that. I don't know if anyone does have the answers to that, but as it stands, there is a clear path for those affiliated with IMMA to be able to qualify for these tournaments. And as you can see, many gyms have, and you do see a diverse list of talent on the roster for heading over to these tournaments, which is good to see.
100%. And, you know, just to maybe speak on a couple of more of the team that's heading over there, and like maybe to backtrack a little bit to Max Lally. And Max, you know, Harry had him on SevereMMA YouTube channel. For me, for such a young man, he's so level-headed. He knows exactly what he wants. He seems to be forging a fantastic path for himself. He's not rushing things too much. To come in and start fighting for titles straight away and winning those fights as well, you know, he's all the talk, and would be up there for me as one of Ireland's leading amateurs right now. I'm really excited to see his progress, and maybe I'll go over to Caoilte first, and then I'll go to you, Andy, just to maybe share your thoughts on Max as a fighter, and I think, you know, you talk about people getting the torch passed to them, and, you know, there's this excitement around Conor McGregor. You know, we have the excitement around Ian Gary now as well. Is Max Lally somebody that you can see that will be the next torch bearer in Irish MMA and the next big thing, perhaps, Caoilte?
He's shown every sign to be. And if he rocks up to Abu Dhabi and just starches everyone in front of him or submits them within a round, he won't only just be a star on the regional scene, everyone will know him, because he's really picking up hype. There's it's crazy. Like, you think about it, this lad's come out made this year, and he's just burst onto the scene, as Mika Richards would say. And he's been incredible. It's great. And he does seem to have that kind of, like, do you know, that Ian Gary hype around him? I was thinking that more so. And what I'd love to see is if we could see Max maybe 2 years. You know, he seems like a really intelligent lad. So I'd say he has a plan set out that he's going to be okay next, whatever, X amount of bouts, X amount of competitions. And I don't see him rushing into pro. And I hope he doesn't rush into the pro scene. But I can see him taking it slowly, and once he gets all the experience under him, and I think he's going to be a serious problem once he turns pro then. And I'm buzzing for it.
Andy, what are your thoughts on Max? I mean, like, Caoilte just spoke very well about him there, and one thing that really stands out to me about Max is the fact that he is spreading himself around into gyms. He's not having himself train out of one gym. He's going to a couple of different gyms, and you know, and for the progression of a fighter where loyalty seemed to be a big thing back in the day, you know, I don't think it does a fighter any harm to kind of give himself a couple of different looks inside gyms and stuff like that. And that's something that Max seems to be doing right now.
I couldn't agree more. I was going to bring that exact point up. If you look at Max Lally, like, Max Lally has traveled over to the US as a child, essentially, as a young teenager, to train with the Danaher Death Squad over in, you know, with Gordon Ryan and Gary Tonin and these guys. It comes from the thing that most impresses me is when you go to different gyms like that, he's putting himself in positions that are very difficult. So he's going to the likes of Dublin Combat Academy for his Muay Thai. He's going to train with Sergey Pakulski in SBG Nace for his wrestling. He's getting MMA sparring in SBG Charlestown, and he's just putting himself in these uncomfortable situations that eventually become comfortable. So that he's, you know, Caoilte, you mentioned there, he reminds you of an Ian Gary, and in ways I agree. I think like these days in Irish MMA, you hear of guys, or it's much more widely known of the amateurs that are coming up. Like, you know, back in the day when there wasn't as much, I guess, casual interest in Irish MMA, you'd hear of maybe a young pro coming through. Now you're hearing of the young amateurs. And to me, I think back to Mohammed Makayev and his run at amateur. Max has, when I watched him fight on Cage Legacy, he has the base that seems to be dominant. I know we're in the age of, there's no, you know, one discipline that will work for everything, but we're still in the age of all these Dagestani fighters coming through where just nitty gritty chain wrestling, where you can get to dominant positions where then you can inflict damage, which is what the judges are looking for. And that's what Max Lally seems to have in abundance. His base seems phenomenal for MMA, and the fact that he's putting himself in these positions where he can develop his striking and every aspect of his game is perfect. And I think that he has a team behind him, especially his chatting to his dad as well, where they're not going to rush this. You know, they're not going to be rushed into going pro just for the sake of it. I would love to see him go 2-3 years. Like, he's only 18, 2-3 years before you go pro. Win everything. Win the IMMAFs twice, 3 times more. Win every belt under the sun on the regional scene, and then go pro, because he's got a very, very bright future.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. Did you have something to add there, Caoilte? Sorry.
It's an interesting one that you mentioned, the how obviously we live in the age of these Dagestani fighters coming through with combat sambo background. And one thing I'm beginning to notice is that fighters coming through, and Lally's probably a very good example of this. Kai O'Sullivan is also another one. There's plenty around the Irish scene. They're becoming more mixed martial artists. They're not one single discipline. They're becoming more accustomed to being able to handle themselves everywhere, and they're so well rounded as a result. And yeah, it's amazing to see, and it's kind of like this type of new style of fighters coming through, and it could, like, yeah, it's exciting. It's and he could take the Makayev route. Yeah, it'd be really cool to see that, because Makayev's 5-0 in the UFC.
Yeah, he's definitely seems to have forged the path in the correct way. I mean, and like, we focused on Team Ireland for a bit, Caoilte, and I'd like to maybe bring you in here to maybe ask you who, in your opinion, would be the other major players coming into this World Championships that would be from outside of Ireland.
Oh, there's loads. Where do I start? Oh my God. Welterweight, senior welterweight, the 2 Bahrain fighters, Gitanov and Gusanov. I really hope they don't meet each other again. They didn't fight last time when they met each other in the finals, but if they do, I'd love to see them fight. They just seem unstoppable, to be honest with you. Absolutely unstoppable. They're incredible, the 2 of them. They could starch most pros out. They're in different ballgame altogether. Another one is a junior bantamweight, Otabek Rajabov. Incredible. He's very, very similar to Makayev. Reminds me of him. It's crazy. If you watch him, it's like shades of Makayev. It's incredible. Really, really exciting to watch. He had a ridiculous amount of fights last year. He won the Europeans, and then he won the World Cup as well, all in the space of 2 months. That's a ridiculous amount of fights for a young fighter. Selfishly, I love Pasha. Super heavyweight. Who doesn't love a super heavyweight? Just 2 load of big lads getting in there, and they it's just knockouts left, right, and center. But he's able to do it all. Like, he can strike. He's got fantastic sambo, and he's unstoppable. He's unbeaten. It's kind of like there's like a storyline in more so who can beat him, and it doesn't seem like anyone can at the moment. He's beaten lads who have now gone on to be who are now successful pros. So he's one that I'm very high on as well. So I'm really excited to see him live. That is a personal highlight.
Nice.
Just to jump in, I'll steal your host spot for 1 second, Ian, but I want to ask both of you guys. There's one fighter we didn't mention that had a phenomenal run in a previous IMMAF tournament, and that's Ryan Keogh. I'd be very interested to hear what you 2 lads think of him.
Well, I might jump in first before Quilcha, but yeah, I seen him in World Cup, and he put on phenomenal performances en route to grabbing up his gold medal during that tournament. And he's a guy that I'm very high on, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he gets in and does in the World Championships here. He'll have probably a couple of tougher tasks ahead of him during this World Championships, and I'm sure Quilcha can speak a little bit better, but a really, really good fighter overall. And I'm sure you could echo those sentiments too, Quilcha.
100%. He was very good. It was a junior featherweight run he had the World Cup, and he just finished everyone. It was top notch. Then he went on to, he's going into senior featherweight now. There needs to be a new champion crowned at senior featherweight, the IMMAFs, and he could meet some really interesting fights there. Ryo Yamaguchi is one that I think I'd love to see them fight. Ryo had a trilogy fights at Mokaev, and they were all in finals. So I would love to see Kyo versus Yamaguchi. I think that would be a fantastic one. But like, the guy's an incredible grappler. If you watch his fights, no one can stop him getting taken down. He just goes in, touch gloves. A few seconds later, opponent's probably on the ground. He's just finding his way around. He's finding his way around them, and there's probably going to be some ground and pound or submission coming in a few minutes later. It's incredible. And when they turn the tables on him, he's well able to handle it. It happened to him in the semi-final of the World Cup. They took him down, or tried anyway, and didn't work out so well for them either. Incredible grappler.
Nice, 100%. And now I guess we can head on over to our interview with Andy Ryan. And let's take it away. And now we're joined by Team Ireland head coach and also Team Rhino head coach, Andy Ryan. When we're going to talk a little bit about the growth of Irish amateur MMA in the country. We're going to talk a little bit about the World upcoming championships. I know myself, Andy and Quilcha had a chat about that already, but it'd be great to get Andy's input, a man who's been there since the very start of Irish MMA. And I guess thanks very much, first of all, Andy, for taking the time to join us and talk to us today on the first episode of the Auld Triangle. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm glad to be on, lads. It's an honour to be asked. I'm delighted. It's great. It's great when the Irish MMA press supports what the lads are doing on the grassroots. So it's great, you know.
You're looking great, Andy. Have you been flat out triathlon training? Have you?
I've been doing a little bit. Yeah, loads of running.
Lovely.
No more heavy weights. Running. Back to me when I used to do a bit of judo and army type of fitness. Try and run every day. Well, at least 5 days anyway. Nothing mad. 5, 10K is nothing mad, nothing very slow, but better than what I was doing.
Andy, you know, myself, Andy, and Quilcha, we've been talking about the current state of Irish MMA, and we all came to the agreement that we all feel it's in a fantastic state right now. I think that the growth of the amateur scene has helped the professional scene grow as well. And, you know, you've been there from the very start, and I'd just like to get your input or your opinion on what has been the major factor on the growth of Irish MMA. Like, I think we've been talking about Team Ireland and the really strong team that you guys are bringing over there to the World Championships as well. And just what would be the major factors and what would, I know it would be a lot of hard work between yourself and John and the rest of the coaches and the whole IMMA team. How do you feel about the growth of Irish amateur MMA in the country since we first entered the team into the IMMAFs in comparison to the team that we're bringing over right now?
Yeah, so I would say at the very, very start of the IMMAFs, we had a really, really strong team. The simple reason was most of the good amateurs that were competing at that level were the sort of the next wave of the pros in Ireland. You know, they were the sort of very experienced sort of fighters. You know, the Liam McCourts and Sinead Kavanaghs and all these people. That's where they sort of started. I think 2015, 16, they were in Vegas. I think we were really strong. I think we've been building over the years, but for me, I think we're sort of I wouldn't say paused a little bit, but we've a good level. But it's the background and the support we need to build on. So it's no more. I've gone to nearly all the World Championships, and every year I sort of sit and listen to the referees' meetings, listen to the coaches' meetings, listen to what the organisers are saying, talk to different coaches from around the world. The serious has got shit. You know, it's. I shouldn't say the serious. I should say the shit has got serious. It's got really, really serious. The big teams are looking at this as like an Olympic sport. They're looking at this as this is the real World Championships. So you go across here to these big competitions, and they have doctors and physios with them, and a heap of coaching staffs, and most of the top countries, the fighters are subsidised or are on big backing, and it's gone really serious. So it reminds me of when I went to my judo competitions back in the day. Ireland, we were sort of very low league, and then you go across to these countries, and the Russians and the French and the Germans, massive teams. It's gone like that with the MMA now. We have the talent, but we got to build on it a little bit. We got to build more of that squad type of feeling. And we have some great fighters coming onto the team, but some of them still a little bit very single-minded, as in the club, and it's SBG or it's Team Rhino or it's whatever. But it's not. It's Team Ireland. You're representing Team Ireland, and the coach is going away, and the guys helping now. It's Team Ireland, So we're in a great position. As you see, we got an invite to that World Super Cup. Top 8 teams in the world plus 2 guests are going. We're ranked 6th. That's unbelievable. Tell me how many other combat sports would Ireland be up in the top ranked, world level, So I think it's something we got to build on, but we got to build on it on here, the grassroots. And I think we've seen that with the Cadet World Championships this year. Max Lally and got the gold medal, and we a couple of other good medals like that. We have a great grassroots coming up, and we got to build that they want to be an honoured and privileged to represent Team Ireland, not just our club. And then, that flows up through the age groups. I'm probably waffling on there, but it's...
No, not at all. That's great. Making our lives easier here. Like you mentioned, Andy, MMA can be such a singular sport at the best of times. And you mentioned that, the transition into becoming like a single athlete into to performing with a team. Like, what do you think are the major factors in trying to get that point across to any of the athletes that would be joining the IMMAF setup and competing in Team Ireland?
Yeah, I think we've been lucky this year. Well, last year I'd say that when we went to cadets, Sergey was there, and Danny Nielsen and Kieran Davern and stuff that come from that sort of jiu-jitsu wrestling background that are used to going to a competition with a team, and it's not just the one competitor competing, So every morning, like I got Sergey and Kieran to do a training session in the mornings, or the evening time after every day was over. Even if you were fighting or finished fighting, you still came and trained. It was building that team bond, that team momentum. You're part of the team. You fight day 1 or you fight day 5, you're part of that training session. And the coaches understand it's a tournament. And that's the other big thing that the coaches, when they first go, I remember Kieran Davern and Philip Peter saying to me when they went to the first IMMAF, they couldn't believe how good it was. Well, hang on a minute, we're having a breakfast with the guys we're competing against. We're on the bus sitting beside them. We're in the same warm-up area. You go on and fight, you win. You're doing it all the next day. It was very much like going to that jiu-jitsu tournament. And I think it's getting that into the head. You're going to a tournament. You're going as a team. Okay, you want your individual result. But it's a great atmosphere and a great buzz when someone is doing well and everyone can feed off that buzz, And I think with the likes of Danny Nielsen, Sergey, with the cadets and stuff coming through, they did a great job. And then the likes of guys who are used to competing at different levels in different sports, not just the MMA, Kieran Daverns, Philip Peters and these guys. It was great to have them on board as well. And a huge big thing for us, what people don't realise, Ashley and Mar and Liam Og in Cork do bleeding amount of work. Like the amount of paperwork and official stuff that has to be done, medicals and clearances and TV rights and health and safety stuff, different protocols, and the amount of meetings they go to when they go to these events is unhuman. And I don't think some of the fighters or coaches understand it till they go to an IMMAF. It's not just turn up Saturday night, you have your changing room and you go in and fight. It's far from it. It's huge. So I think you're not gonna understand it till you experience it.
Andy, is there more of a focus prior to getting over to the tournament on instilling that team atmosphere, with the training sessions happening before they head over?
Yeah, so originally, not last year, the year before, we had started doing squad sessions and making you go to squad sessions. So they were at Dublin, Belfast, Cork, and part of that team you were trying together. And then when get your national tracksuit and you travel together, you were part of a team. But with the whole thing with COVID, that sort of kicked us in the nuts a little bit. So we missed a lot of them squads this year. We haven't got the same sort of organisation or the same sort of bond going over. We're a little bit fragmented, you know what I mean? But that will all change. Once we get there day 1 of the competition, it will change.
Andy, you were mentioning there like about all the work that's going on in the background, and like it's not just turn up on the day and fight.
No.
And how you want kind of people to come along, and you want more background, more backing in Ireland itself. Is there any? Obviously, a big part of that is going to be your push for recognition. Is there any?
That is moving ahead. Tim Murphy and Danny Carr are constantly in meetings and phone calls and Skype stuff all the time. Every week there's something happening with the Sports Council, with IMMAF and other bits and pieces. That's going ahead. But what people have to realise is, even if we do get recognition, no one's going to give us any money. Established sports get nothing as it is. Unless you're boxing or some of the big sports that have results, you're going to get money. So don't think that, we're going to get recognition and then someone's going to give us $100,000 check to send 60 kids to a competition. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. We just want to be able to get the sport recognised so that we can... See, this is what people forget about, the coaching courses, the referees courses. Like, there's plenty of people in gyms that want to do MMA and they might never want to be a fighter, but they want to help out as a coaching assistant or get onto the referees or do officials or, some sort of timekeeper or something in the sport. So you see that in all the martial arts. There's a huge background staff and a huge lot of people helping out in the wings. And that's what I think with the recognition we have that then. So, you do your coaching course. It's an official coaching course recognised by Sports Ireland. It's something you can stand over. And I think that's the big thing that I want.
Andy, later on this year, we're going to have the inaugural national championships, where fighters can currently sign up for that. Fighters can currently sign up for that right now. Yeah. How important do you think having those national championships are in the development of amateur sports in the country and when it comes to mixed martial arts?
Yeah, they're huge. They're huge because you look at we take a good example is the boxing, and boxing is probably our most successful combat sport and most successful sport in Ireland. Their national championships is a huge deal every year. You're the elite champion. The plans are eventually that we'll have like a novice, intermediate, senior, and elite championship. So you're not going to be coming to your first national championships and you're fighting a Jer Harris or a Lee Hammond or something like this. You're in your, like the way the boxing does it, you're in your novice, you move up then to intermediate, and then them guys going to the world championships. That's your elite MMA guys. So I think it's really, really good. It's needed. But I tell you what we do need. We need a lot more gyms to join. There's some brilliant fighters out there. And, I know that Team Torres are going to come on board. I know FAI up in Belfast is going to come on board. That combat guys up in Derry, they're great gym. They're some super fighters. Team KF and Sarge. We need all these teams to join up. But people think, Andy Ryan, he's the head coach and team right now. I want everybody involved. Because the more successful we are, the best players we put out there, the better for the sport. The better for me then in Finglas and Donaby and Moyes. More people are going to look to join. So we need the best athletes going. But guys have to have a little bit of respect as well for what's happening there. So what sometimes happens is a coach might ring me and say, Andy, we want to join, but I want to be the team coach and I want to be president of the association and my lads are going to World Championships. Oh, well, that's no problem. Come and join first. Before you want anything, come and join first. Join. Get your fighters to join. Get them to sign up. Come to a squad session. Enjoy it. Of course, we want people to help out. We want to, it's great. So the more teams, the better.
Yeah, I couldn't
Andy,
agree
what do
more.
you think that the what is the barrier? Like, what are the next? How can we achieve that? Like
control. People think that if they have to hand over, it's very I had Kieran Davern, or I had Dino, or I had other people doing my fighters' corners. I didn't mind. They were in good, safe hands. Sergey jumping. Anyway, sometimes some coaches have this thing of control. That's the other thing. When we go to these world championships, we say to the guys, your club coach can come. Once they join the association, and they get their coaching badges and stuff done, or do the coaching course, you come away, you can do the corner. You can have your coach in the corner. We'll help out. But if that coach comes over, you're there for the whole team, not just for yourself. So that's the good thing we have at the moment. So some gyms joining are afraid. I don't know. It's that's the vibe I get, that they're going to lose control of the fighters. They're not going to lose control. They can come and coach, and be involved. That's the thing I find.
Yeah, 100%. And I won't keep you too much longer, Andy, and thanks very much for joining us today.
No problem.
We spoke ourselves before you came on just about the Irish team itself, and we're excited to see them going over there and compete. You know, you've had an up close and personal look at the team. Is there anybody that stands out to you, or anybody you're looking forward to seeing compete over there? Anyone that we should be keeping an eye on over there?
All the girls, all the ladies team. We have a super ladies team. I'm actually trying to get Danny Nielsen to get a bit more involved with the ladies. You know, she's really, really good, and I was lucky to coach her at the cadets at the Worlds, and she was a great coach. She was a great help, you know. At the Super World Cup in Prague, she was a great help as well. So I think the ladies team could do really well. With some great fighters there. I think the men have the hands full. I think it depends on the draw and depends on how you're feeling going out here. You get a good draw and you're feeling confident, and your weight cut goes right and your training's going right, you're going to do well. On the men's, there's a lot of guys. I look well. You know, the under 21s, with some good guys in the 21s. I'd like to see how Max gets on now, moving up that level to the sort of under 21s from the juniors. And then Simon is another good fighter. Took a world medal. I think he could have won the World Cup. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. I'm looking forward to seeing the whole team. But I just hope that if they have that feeling confident going over, knowing that, you know, you're going over here to win this. You're not going on a holiday. It's not an expensive holiday. You're going over to win it. And I think 99% of the team have that. You know, a lot of them are experienced. So I'm looking forward to them all competing, really. But I think the ladies will do well. I think they're the ones to watch this time. They're the ones who can make a difference. You know, I think as well, people think that we've a very senior team going. We've a very novice team going, I think, compared to some other years where we've had a lot of experienced fighters there. You know, we've lost a lot of those guys that have done the Alexander O'Sullivans, and, you know, we've lost all them that they've done their 2 or 3 tournaments. The Lee Hammonds, the Ger Harris, they're gone. So I think it's a new batch of fighters. I think Ryan Keogh will be good to see. Ryan seems to have this sort of tournament jiu-jitsu suits MMA suits him. You know, his style and his game suits him. So I think I'd like to see how he gets on in the seniors now. You know, it's a little bit harder in the seniors. You know, you're getting that 25-year-old experienced martial arts athlete. You know, that's what you're up against. You're not in with the kids anymore. I'd like to see how he gets on, but he'd be one to watch. But I think all the girls, for me, are the ones this time to watch. I think that's something we could be trying to develop with some super, you know, female and young lady athletes coming through. So I think that's something that we could build.
100%.
We need a few big guys as well. We've lost our, you know, Brian and Big Trevor don't seem to be doing and competing for this one. We need a couple of big heavyweights. We sort of suffer from the light heavyweight up a little bit, you know.
Andy, with the kind of championships, there's like obviously the focus for you will be Ireland, but getting to go out there again and having the World Championships again, what do you look for the most in that? And is there any kind of, when you look away from probably your own team, is there any kind of personal highlights for yourself in terms of even learning from other federations or stuff that's put on by IMMAF themselves, or even just watching certain divisions? Yeah,
well, for me, I always try and grab 1 or 2 of the coaches there and ask them, you know, what do you think is working, and what do you think, you know, what do you think how the MMA is developing? And I had a great one a few years ago in Romania. I grabbed the Swedish coach, because the Swedish were the most successful for years, and I was asking them, what's winning in jiu-jitsu, in MMA, and what's the style now? And he was sort of saying, well, if this is tournament MMA, it's not, you know, your Saturday night knock the head off each other, so you got to be clever, you know. So it's that sort of good with the hands, close the distance, take your opponent down, hold them down, win the round, do that for 3 rounds. You know, look for a submission. There's no one going and knocking the heads off each other, because you've got to do a medical the next day. So for me, I like to go and see what the other teams are doing. I like to go and see the coaches. But what I do love to see, and I love sitting back sometimes and see how strong Ireland are and how we are respected. You know, I do a few little things psychologically with the lads when we get there. I make sure we get onto that bus, we're in that hotel. Nobody steps in front of us. Nobody gets on the bus in front of us, pushes us out of the way. No one takes over the mat area. We stand on there. We're as good as anybody. And I say to them, with some of the big, I won't mention teams, with some of the big teams be on the mat and sort of dominating or a bit loud, get in the middle there and hit the pads. Warm up. Let people know we're not here to be walked on. We're here to win these medals. We're one of the strongest teams in the world. We're some of the best athletes. So I like that. I like seeing that, and I like seeing the fighters doing that. A big thing I did take away from the last tournament we were at was the Spanish team. The Spanish team had a small number of athletes there. I think they had 7 athletes with 6 in finals, something like this. But they were very much, it wasn't like it was each fight or the final, it was just a tournament. It wasn't a big deal. They were getting in, fighting, winning a fight, jumping out, going supporting their teammates straight away. They weren't going off doing 20 press conferences or going bleeding, having 20 points. But, it was just a tournament to them. And it was great watching them, how they were doing it and how relaxed they were between fights. And how, they were a great team. I took a little bit away from them. I watched them. I spoke to them as well. A lot of them, what they did was they trained with the national judo and wrestling teams over there in Spain. And they weren't training to become a judo player or wrestler, but they were training how to grapple and fight with these sort of guys, So I was impressed with the Spanish. So for me, going to the World Championships, I enjoy seeing what other countries are doing. I enjoy talking to the coaches. But main thing for me is I enjoy watching us being one of the biggest teams in the world, one of the strongest. And people are looking. They get a draw against Ireland. They know they have a hard fight. They know we can box. They know we can do jiu-jitsu. They know we can wrestle. So that for me is a big thing. And plus, you're mixing with some of the big names in the world and you're getting a bit of respect off them. So I like that as well,
Yeah, that's great, Andy. I appreciate the time that you've taken to speak with us today.
Yeah, any time at all, lads.
We'll definitely have you on again down the line. It was a no-brainer when we had the conversation and who to have on first, and other than yourself.
Sorry, I was late coming on.
They're all good, Andy. These things happen. This is the entertainment industry.
just to jump in just before you go, so one of the big kind of news stories that we spoke about earlier on in the podcast was Dean Barry signing for the UFC, and I know he's no longer with SPG Charleston, but I know that he's been doing a number of sessions with wrestling sessions in your gym. How's Dean been getting on, and what's your reaction to him signing? Yeah,
I was delighted for any Irish fella to sign. I hope he just understands how much of a big deal it is, and how the path he's taken to get it has got him there, and now he's had to get the doors have opened that he can't throw away that spot. He's got to really work hard for it. I haven't sat down with Dean and talked to him. I wasn't in the gym the last couple of weeks. I was at home with Corona. He'd been up there training with Redzer. He's done a couple of striking classes, and he's done a couple of MMA classes, and he's done some wrestling. I haven't spoken about training full time in the gym. That's his own call. He's more than welcome to come and train with us. But he's got to understand this is a huge opportunity. He has to pull out all the stops now. Go make an impression, get a win, and what he's been doing, multiply it by 10. And like it's a massive opportunity, isn't it? It's. I think he's. I didn't really know Dean before this, but I haven't seen him coming through where others have come through that sort of European scene and sort of had half of the Irish press on Sean Shelby's back to get him in. He's got the spot. He's talented. He's a good striker. His jiu-jitsu is not bad. But I think he should go and prove now to everyone, I'm there. I've got this spot for a reason, and go out and win this first fight.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you think of him being signed?
I'm delighted to see him sign. More Irish in the UFC is only
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of begrudgers in Ireland. We see someone doing well. Look, we all do it. We all, look and say, but instead of saying, no, I can feed off this. That's what I look and I say, when it doesn't have to be a fella from my gym winning a medal at the World Championships or at the European Champions. Once someone from Ireland wins, we're all part of that Ireland, So if another Irish fighter signs to the UFC, great. It's another Irish fighter. It's going to open the door for more guys.
I think if you look at the last wave, that was exactly how it happened. And I understand the perspective of fighters looking at Dean getting signed and he's only got a few fights and them saying, that's bullshit, that should be me. But at the end of the day, that means that they're looking at Irish fighters. So there's opportunities there. If Dean can get in, then there's going to be more opportunities down the line. So
I'd love to see James Sheehan get a good run this year. James Sheehan is a beast. A beast. He's just a phenomenal machine. He's been unlucky with injuries. I know he's very happy to stay with Cage Warriors and work that route, but I do hope he gets a little bit of exposure this year. He's a savage of a fighter. Dean only said to me, he sparred with him and he wrestled with James, and he couldn't believe his strength from how quick he was, how good he was at all levels. So I hope he gets a good crack this year. See what happens.
We won't keep you any longer, Andy. Thanks so
No
much for
problem,
joining us
boys.
again. Andy is heading on over to the World Championships with Team Ireland. They'll take place from the 24th to the 29th of January in the Jiu-Jitsu Arena in Abu Dhabi. Andy, we wish you the best of luck, the rest of the coaches the best of luck, and of course Team Ireland the best of luck heading on over there representing their country. And I'm really looking forward to looking at it and seeing all the team doing really well over there. Thanks again for joining us tonight, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Listen, lads, thanks very much for the support. Brilliant stuff. Good luck.
All the best.
All the best, Andy. Perfect. That was a great interview. You know, like I said to Andy, it was a no-brainer for us who we were going to have on in our first episode, and Andy always delivers, and there's no better man leading the charge there for Team Ireland heading over there to the World Championships. And I guess we can probably quickly move on to, and we can wrap it up pretty quickly after this. We'll move over to maybe a couple of fan questions. You know, the fan input, the audience input is going to be so important to us. We want to integrate with the audience. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, DM us. You can email us at the Auld Triangle 21@gmail.com if you have any questions, any queries, anything that you'd like to talk to us about. And even if you'd like to see any guests come on with us, you know, just don't hesitate to reach out and we can make that happen. You know, fan interaction, audience interaction is very important to us, and it's very important to the growth of this podcast as well. And just kind of to piggyback off a couple of the comments or some of the news stories that we were talking about earlier on, Sean Denny asked a question about the Ger Harris and Mulholland fight. If Harris wins, we're rated the races, right? That was his question. You know, I think it's a very tough fight, and we alluded to that earlier on. So what would you say to Sean Denny's question there, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, like, we're away to the races. I wouldn't say that, if I'm honest. I think that I think it would be a very, very good win. But I think that we have a tendency in Irish MMA, the same way when we're chatting about Max Lally or an Ian Gary previously or anyone, where we kind of see someone with a bit of talent and a lot of promise coming through, and they get maybe a win or two, and we're thinking, right, this is it. We've made it. This is the next big thing. Not away to the races, but it's a huge win, and it shows a lot. It'll show a lot for Ger Harris, and it'll make a statement. It'll probably make him very difficult to get matched up moving forward. But yeah, look, if he comes through and beats Kieran Mulholland, it's a huge win in the Irish circuit. So I'll be very impressed.
Caoilte, Sean is also looking for a little bit of input from you, just to talk about the CMAC gym. He says that it's a gym that doesn't really get too much recognition. Obviously, we spoke about Kaya O'Sullivan, who fights out of there too. Good fighting family, is obviously sister of Alexandra O'Sullivan as well. Just what are your thoughts on the CMAC gym overall?
It's a very interesting one. I kind of deep dived into them recently enough when Kaya O'Sullivan was kind of thriving in the amateurs at the World Cup. And one thing I did notice is actually it's a real fighting family, because Kaya and Alexander's mother also fought at the IMMAFs a couple of years back, and now both of them have gone through as well. So you've obviously it was mad find that. But anyway, you've got some serious fighters coming out of there. Obviously, you have Alexander O'Sullivan, Kaya O'Sullivan. I think one who's come back recently, back active, is Emil Piatek. I hope I'm saying that correct. Danny will correct me if I said that correctly. But yeah, he absolute savage amateur. Like, I really want to see him active this year. He's incredible. They've got a pro there as well, who's recently kind of come on to the scene. Kenny Scott there. He was fighting on Clan Wars, then Cage Conflict. 2 wins, 2 pro wins, both were coming by finish in the space of 2 months. Yeah, they're thriving really, and I hope they I hope to give them a bit more recognition over the year, and to really hope to see them kind of thrive and pick up some more kind of titles.
They had another fighter, Jordan Bradshaw, that fought on Cage Legacy 14 there against, I think it was SPG Clonmel's Rory Burke. And I think it might have been the first fight in the main card, but it was very, very high level, very back and forth, went to a decision. So, you know, there's a lot of fighters on the scene from many different gyms, and CMAC is absolutely one of them that's producing good talent. Yeah,
100%. Thomas Delaney asks, how would you build up Dean Barry inside the UFC? Thomas reckons that he thinks the Mike Jackson fight is a bad idea, style wise, and if he gets through that, who would you match him up against next?
What do you think of that one, Ian?
I think the Mike Jackson fight is the perfect fight for Dean right now, if I'm being completely honest. I think, Mike does have some grappling skills, but I don't think that there's anything that Mike has right now in comparison to the skills that Dean is bringing to the table that Dean is not going to be able to handle if this fight goes out like happens. So I think, you've got to build Dean slowly inside the UFC. You don't want to be throwing him to the wolves. We've seen Reece McKee go in there and it didn't really work out for him. So I'm all for slow building the fighters. And, it was great to get the insight from Andy there. Dean has been doing a little bit of work with Team Rhino. I think that's a perfect gym for him. I think that there's some talented guys in there that he can really go to work with and to build his skills. And personally, I think the Mike Jackson is a perfect fight for Dean, and it's a very winnable fight for Dean as well. And I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts as well.
Selfishly, I would love to see him fight a striker after in his next fight, because I love striking background, love watching Muay Thai, K1, kickboxing, absolutely anything, boxing. I really want to see that showcased. So I'd love to see him with another high level kind of striker that's early in their UFC career. I think that would be fantastic, be it at lightweight, featherweight, welterweight, whichever he's going to pursue afterwards, or whatever he can get fights at. I'd love to see that, the actual fight itself that he's been booked for. I think it's perfect start, or could be booked for perfect start. Nice one.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Work away.
Sorry, taking over. I agree. I think that it'd be silly not to match him up with a striker, wouldn't it? Like, you're signing him early on in his career. He's got an exciting style on the feet. He's gonna be put in. Anyone who was in the UFC, they're gonna be able to wrestle. They're gonna have jiu-jitsu. They're gonna have all that. But what's the point in signing him if you're not gonna put him against a striker, at least for the first few? Obviously, I wouldn't classify Mike Jackson as a striker, but if Dean doesn't come through Mike Jackson, then he shouldn't be in the UFC, and that's the truth of things.
Yeah, that's the truth. I would tend to agree with that as well. And we'll finish off with a question from Andy Hickey. And his question is, how far do you think that Sean O'Bannon can go as a pro, and what route does she take? Sean O'Bannon is obviously someone I'm really excited to see move into the pro ranks. I was on with an interview with her before her last Cage Legacy fight, before she picked up the Cage Legacy flyweight title. She mentioned a couple like Brave, UAE Warriors, and Invicta. You're going to want to be putting yourself in there with someone who's going to look after you and build you correctly too. And I think if she does things right, she's with a good gym there in Houlihan Martial Arts as well, under the tutelage of Paddy Houlihan, top gym over there. So I'm really excited to see her progression. And I think, if she does things the right way, she can go really, really far in the sport. And maybe I'll go over to Caoilte first. She would have got plenty of up close and personal looks at Shauna through the amateur ranks, and obviously she was very successful picking up a gold medal at the IMMAF World Cup last year as well. A super year for her in 2021, and I'm excited to see her jump to the pro ranks this year too.
Yeah, she was phenomenal at the IMMAFs. Really stood out from the crowd. Looked kind of a level ahead of everyone that was kind of coming up against her. She was, she had that maturity in the cage that didn't look like an amateur anymore. She was ready to make the jump almost. So it's really cool that she's doing it. The one I think that you mentioned there, I think she said when you interviewed her, was the Invicta. I'd love to see that route. I think that'd be a really, really cool one to go down. I don't think we've had an Irish woman in Invicta since Catherine Costigan, and I think that was 2015. I could be completely wrong with that. It was in Vegas before McGregor fight, I'm pretty sure. So I'd love to see Sean O'Bannon get into Invicta. However, there's also that promotion that Dakota Cheva just fought in, all women's promotion. That would be fantastic, because they look like they're doing a few bits. It's in Canada too, so Ian, you can go see it.
I'll definitely make a trip if it happens. I'd love to see it. Andy, you got to see Sean up close and personal last time at Cage Legacy show. She had a tough fight there when she picked up the flyweight title. I mean, what are your thoughts on Shauna's move over to the pro ranks?
I'm very excited for it, and I think that it's coming at a great time. She had a phenomenal 2021. After giving birth, going and winning 5 in a row is incredible. It's simply incredible. And that last fight with Chanel Dyer, which was a tough matchup, Shauna came through adversity in that fight. There was no easy fight. There was back and forth. I know Shauna had that beautiful high kick that dropped Dyer. She was patient. You know, I thought the fight at times could have been stopped. I'm not saying it necessarily should have been, but you know, Dyer fought back, and I just think that Shauna is showing. She comes from the exact same wacko style kickboxing background. You know, the kind of points kickboxing style. She has come in and she has completely immersed herself in jiu-jitsu, immersed herself in wrestling to the point where she's obsessed, and it shows because the patience and the fight IQ that she has in fights and the relationship that she has with her coach Paddy Hoolan is incredible. When she got to the fight to the mat in I can't remember now if it was the second or third round that she got to finish, but she was listening to Paddy. You know, Paddy was talking to her, shouting at her from the corner. She was patient. She methodically got to mount and then got to finish. So I completely agree with what Caoilte was saying there. I'd love to see her go down the Invicta route or that Palace Athena Women's Fighting Championship that just put on the show, purely because it's difficult for women to get matched. You know, there's not the same number of women out there fighting as there are men. I don't think we see her in Bellator. Cage Warriors do not have a women's division as it stands. I think the last woman to fight there was oh god, forget her name now. She's fighting in the UFC. It doesn't matter, we move on. Anyway,
Molly McCann, is it?
No, not Molly McCann. Who's the this is wrecking my head. Anyway, I think fighting in an all-female or not, or fighting for a brave, whoever can get her matched and get her matched you know, frequently, that's the route there. She's going to be heading towards the UFC. That's her goal, and I think we see her there in the next 3 years, if not sooner.
Yeah, perfect. I agree 100% with you guys, and I think we'll wrap it up at that. It was the first episode of the Auld Triangle, the first of many. Really happy to get on with the guys here. Our plan for this podcast is to release a podcast every 3 weeks, depending on what is happening in the world of Irish MMA. We'll be hoping to have a guest on for each episode. So, like we said before, don't hesitate to send in your questions. You can send in questions to the Auld Triangle 21@gmail.com. You can hit myself up at IO'NeillMMA. You can hit Andy up at AndySteve123 on Twitter, and you can hit Caoilte up on Caoilte de Barra MMA. Is that correct, Caoilte?
No, I just Caoilte de Barra.
Caoilte de Barra, sorry. Excuse me, at Caoilte de Barra on Twitter as well. Thanks to everybody for joining us and listening to us today. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Auld Triangle, and we will all talk to you the next time.